Deb, are you ready in the back? All right, we'll get started here. Good morning, everyone. Today is Wednesday, September 25th, 2024, and I'd like to welcome everyone to the board meeting. We'll call this meeting to order at 9 a.m. Teleconference number is 971-254-3149, conference ID 866-914-607#. Audio capabilities are listen only and are offered on a best effort for the public. Our meeting is also live streamed, and you can join us online by going to our website or to tctvonline.com, click on live broadcasts. Before we get started, I'd like to remind everyone to mute your phones. You can do this by pressing *6. Please unmute your phone when your agenda item is ready to be discussed. For those joining via computer, please unmute your microphone and turn your camera on when your agenda item is called. All others must remain muted with their cameras turned off. Thank you. Public comment. Those intending to provide public comment to the board may attend in person or email submissions to public comments email on our website. Public comments received by 12 p.m. on Tuesday will be distributed to the board, posted online before the meeting, and become part of the public record. You may also provide public comment virtually by registering ahead of time. To register, please email public comments by 12 p.m. on the Tuesday prior to the board meeting. Public comments can also be mailed to the Board of Commissioners office at 201 Laurel Avenue, Tillamook, Oregon, 97141. For more information on public comment options, please visit the Board of Commissioners webpage. Do we have anyone signed up in the room or online for public comment? Okay, thank you. All right, well, we have called the meeting to order. I'll invite our guests to sign the list, and we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Commissioner Olson, will you lead us, please?
Yes, I will.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, we will start with public comment. I'll invite April Bailey to come up. Good morning. If you'll introduce yourself and your area of residence.
Yes. Good morning, commissioners. It's good to see you. I'm April Bailey. I'm from Nescoin, Oregon, longtime resident. I first want to thank the commissioners for their letter regarding the wind turbine power that's proposed in our oceans, though not, directly in front of our county yet. It's very important that you weigh in on any encroachment to our county by the federal and state government. I've seen you guys doing this more, and I really appreciate it. It's noted. Thank you. Unfortunately, I have another matter to speak to you today. And it's a matter of disposing of county property. On June 1st, I checked out several books.
April, let me interrupt you. Is this related to one of our agenda items? Because we take public comment on agenda
public
items.
comment, and I was already commenting on an agenda item.
Pardon me?
I was commenting on an agenda item.
The disposal of books?
I already started my comment on an agenda item. Are you usually is it usually your normal, do you normally interrupt people in their public comment? Because I've heard people in here without an agenda item really on their public comment. I could name names. And you guys fit him in because you wanted to hear his public comment. I just made a comment of an item that was on the agenda. I will not take more than the time I'm allowed. I will not talk about anything that is of a personnel nature, if that helps. And I am not sure why this is such an issue at this moment.
Well, the issue is that we allow public comment on agenda items.
Agreed.
And I'm willing to, it's at the chair's discretion.
Sure.
And I'm willing to use my discretion to give you 2 minutes if you are absolutely certain that you're not going to talk about a personnel issue.
I promise, ma'am, I will not mention a personnel issue.
If you
have my
do,
word.
if you do, I'll interrupt you and we'll stop the comment period.
I absolutely promise I will not do that to you.
Okay, 2 minutes.
Okay. So on June 1st, I checked out 22 books. My books were deemed for teens by call number or by where they are in this section of the library. Well, by both in that case. I knew these books would distress me, to be honest with you, but I was really shocked when I delved more into them. They are very sexual. They groom children to be predatorized by sexual predators. They're very graphic. And I cannot in good conscience bring them back to the library, but they're county property. I've dealt with this issue on several occasions with the library board. I've had several conversations with others that work for you. And this is a systemic problem. There are even more books in the children's section, which is super disturbing. Many people have asked me to destroy these books. I kid you not, I cannot count how many people have asked me to destroy these books. That's not really in my nature. This is county property that unfortunately the taxpayers paid for. So, children. These are the books. I'm returning them to you to help. I've sorted them out for you and I've marked them, and your constituents will be watching whether these return to the library or not. And I'm sorry this has to be dealt with this way, but as Mary Faith Bell knows and all of you know, I've tried.
Thank you, April. To clarify, there is a process for challenging a book, and April has been through the process for challenging a book, and the process is through the library. So if any citizens, if anyone who uses our library wants to challenge a book, they need to go through the library director, ask for the challenge form, ask for a meeting with the library director. There's a process. So thank you for your comment. Okay, then we will move on to, I need to announce that item number 12 on our agenda has been postponed, and we've added one unscheduled item to be taken after 13. And now we'll move on to agenda item 5, which is the Emergency Volunteer Corps of Nehalem Bay presentation. With Trish Johnson. Good morning.
Good morning, commissioners. I'm with my colleague Brad Hart this morning, and we appreciate taking the time out of your busy schedule to listen to our presentation this morning.
Good morning to you both.
Thank you. So now I need Deborah's help. Of course I have a PowerPoint that I would like to share with you this morning.
Okay, Deb said you're a presenter and you're able to share.
Okay. I'm working, I promise. So on my end, I'm just getting a spinning wheel. Oh, something's happening. Can you see the slides?
Not at this moment.
Okay. Well.
Trish, if you'll click on your PowerPoint icon at the bottom.
Is it warm in here?
Okay.
It's a little warm.
And then
Hey, Deb.
click
Share.
present. Down at the bottom by the slider with the percentages, there's a little screen icon. Click there.
Okay, doing that.
All good.
Now, okay?
Yes.
You can see this now. Yay. Okay,
Yes.
I'm so excited. Yay. All right.
Mhm.
So this is a quick report of how we spent the funds that you provided to us this past year. Quick synopsis of what we do. I think many of you are familiar with that. And so I won't go through all of this, but the one thing that we do want you to understand is that we are primarily a teaching organization and happy to do that for our community. We have two primary divisions, community preparedness and emergency response, and these divisions are supported by Brad and his team to engage with the community, creating content and materials, printed materials and other materials. In the Community Preparedness Division, we have programs like emergency food supplies, go bags, emergency preparedness for neighborhoods, our Prepare Your Neighborhood program, a WASH program, water sanitation and hygiene classes. Emergency response supports our local responders through our community or emergency response teams, our emergency communication programs. And as I mentioned, Brad and his team help get the word out about these various programs that we have at the Emergency Volunteer Corps. This is a synopsis of how we spent the funding that you provided us. You'll note that the bulk of it did go to communication and outreach this year through publications. We did some Spanish language translations, which we were really, really happy to be able to do. Another big expenditure was around emergency supplies for neighborhoods, including go bags and what we call nest kits, which I'll show you in just a little bit. And then another large share of the money went for having a large container at our emergency response site at the Manzanita transfer station, the assembly site there. So we're really glad to be able to have that container there with emergency supplies. And just so you know, we did match many of the funds that you provided with our own funding, but your funding really made the difference for us to be able to do this work. So we thank you for that. These are some examples of the materials that Brad and his team have been able to produce. Brad, any comments?
Our readiness book is one of our more popular items. It's a full scenario of what one needs to do to be personally prepared. So we've got quite a few checklists in there, and we've actually broken it down to make it not quite so overwhelming, just to do one thing a month to make sure you're prepared. And we are happy to share copies of that, and it's available on our website if anyone wants to see it electronically.
Thank you, Brad. These are some of the examples of how we spent the funding that you provided us. This is a nest kit, neighborhood emergency supplies and tools. It's packed with tarps and communication equipment, medical supplies, and most importantly, it has an open this first box, which kind of outlines whoever opens the box first, what steps they need to take and the kind of skill sets they need to gather in case there is a major disaster. We also donated go bags for lower income and Hispanic residents. We're very pleased to be able to do that. We supported our community emergency response team with additional supplies. This is an example of our evaluation of a mass care prototype. It's a large tent that we were able to set up at the Manzanita Farmers Market and had a lot of interest among the public to learn more about emergency preparedness. And also our Medical Reserve Corps was able to purchase additional medical supplies. This is a picture of a lovely trailer that we were able to purchase through another granting source. And we will have 2 of these trailers located in the Nehalem area to be able to provide emergency support, emergency medical support in the event of a disaster. So preparedness and resilience, I'm sure you know this, it's 2 sides of the coin. There is personal responsibility and there is governmental responsibility. And we do sincerely appreciate the funding that you have provided us in the past to do the work that we do. And here are the key takeaways for you to consider. We will need less assistance if the community is more resilient from the first responders. We feel that tourists are more likely to visit a prepared community. And then by supporting volunteer programs like ours, you can help us become more prepared. There's also a key caveat with this, is that EVCNB has kind of hit the full mark. We've hit our capacity to be able to provide these programs and resources. And we are going to be starting an initiative, which we will be reaching out to you about, to see if there's a way that we can do a more collaborative effort around being prepared and resilient in Tillamook County and specifically in our area north of Tillamook County. So more on that soon. And with that, we thank you, and Brad and I are happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Commissioners?
Oh, thank you, Commissioner Bill. I have one comment and then a question I think most of us would agree that what you've done in the north part of Tillamook County has become a standard, not only for the county, but Oregon, and it's often held up as an example of what to do. And so, yes, so my two questions really, you've got the picture of some of the, I guess I'd call them ingredients or items that would go into a go bag or that you need, maybe not entirely in the go bag. If you could go back to the one that there's a caution tape on the left-hand side. Can you go backwards so we're talking about the same thing on your display?
Close the presentation. So let me see here.
There, okay, so what is
This one?
the second one in on the top row? What, I don't recognize that particular
This one?
device. Looks like a
We could-
hammer and some other things. It could be multi-tool of some sort. What
Yes.
exactly
It
is that?
is, it is a multi-tool, and it does several functions. So it serves as a crowbar, and you'll see on the end, that's a device that could be used to cut off water supplies if there's a leak, as well as
Yeah.
gas valves. So it's
Okay,
it's
yeah,
a
good.
multi-purpose tool. You're exactly right.
And could one, where does one find one of those? I've got an awful lot of tools, 3 bags full, and I know so much else, but could that be purchased at local hardware stores, or where are they available?
I believe we've ordered this online. I can do some research and send you an email with exactly where we've purchased those from.
Well, I'm just curious, and okay, so that's one that I don't have. I do have in our vehicles. I have a device similar to that that's used for breaking glass if you accidentally drive into a lake or river or something, and those kinds of things. But I like to have tools around me. I guess that's a man thing, maybe, but and I know how to use most of them. So the next question is sort of a I'll say it in jest in a way, but it also has a serious component. People have asked me, what do you need? And when these subjects come up, I say, well, my plan is to have maybe a few $100s, a can opener, and a 38 special. And you can get along somehow, but that implies the 38 special would be used for things that are probably not appropriate. You know, I've never seen in all these go bags and things the suggestion that you do have some kind of a handgun or some protection device. Is there a reason why that is? In other words, if I had to leave my home in a hurry and I happen to have a license to carry a handgun, I would take one with me simply because there are wild critters around here, and I wouldn't use it to necessarily take a can of Campbell's soup away from my neighbor, but one never knows. And if you're out for an extended period of time, let's say days after day after day, and something could well go wrong, you might need it, if not only to signal where you are. Why are firearms never part of this, or do you even know if there is a restriction or a reason or some rationale? Maybe that's a goofy question, but maybe not.
I think it's personal preference, Commissioner, as to whether or not you want to carry a firearm in your go bag.
Okay, well,
There's no restriction against that if you have a permit to carry a weapon. I think that's absolutely what you should do if that makes you feel more comfortable. We do encourage people to customize their go bags for their own personal needs. For example, if they take medicines or they have glasses or they have dietary restrictions, that they think about those things.
well, fair enough. Thank you. A good answer, and I guess a lot of things boil down to personal preference, and what works for one person may not work for another. So, thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you for the questions.
Oh, thank you. I don't have any questions, just accolades. You all do such a fantastic job, and I was really pleased to see the work on go bags for our community members who may be struggling to put those together for themselves. And I love the in your readiness materials, you talk about one item per month, you know, that we can prepare for this without it becoming such an overwhelming project. Because I do know we have our tote full of food and supplies and different things to prepare our household. And we have done that a little at a time. And every couple of years, of course, we have to redo it. And as we redo it, I realize, oh my gosh, this is a huge effort. And it is expensive, you know, to have 2 weeks or more of food available to you, those kind of things. It's difficult to do in one fell swoop, even once you've put it all together. So I appreciate the work that you're doing to help our community who may struggle with being able to do that. So thank you so much, both Trish and Brad, for a great presentation and for the work that you and your group does.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner.
You're welcome.
I concur with Commissioner Scar's sentiments. I'm very grateful for the work that you do. I appreciate this presentation, and more, I appreciate the work that you do and have done on education and preparedness. We're so very fortunate to have EVCNB working in our community. And I'm interested to hear about your ideas for the future of the organization and collaboration. And I see your work in as it's happening with helping other communities to become prepared, which I'm just deeply grateful for, because you have established the model. EVCMB has established the model that to which all other groups are aspiring, and so for them to be able to use your model is invaluable, truly. You know, that every community doesn't have to figure it out on their own is amazing. And so I'm just exceedingly grateful for all of your work. I love the flyer that Brad pointed out that was prepared in the past year, and I've looked through it. It's just the quality is excellent. I'm grateful for the translated materials. Thank you. I'm grateful for the materials that are available to people who can't afford them, because, you know, a go bag is maybe out of reach for people on a very limited income. And so I just think you're doing excellent work, you know, and should we have, all of this work is valuable in emergencies of any size, but should we have a major disaster, the work that your community has done will hold us in good stead in a way that won't be true for every community. And so I'm just very grateful. And to Commissioner Olson's point about this tool, I know his lovely wife, Patty, generally watches these meetings. And so that would be an excellent Christmas present idea.
Oh, wow, what a surprise.
It is a cool tool. I'm glad we talked about it, because I didn't know what it was for either, but what a good idea to have a water and gas shutoff on a tool. That's a great idea. Yeah. So thank you all. Thank you for the presentation, and thank you for your great work.
Thank you so much, Commissioners. We do appreciate it. And we will have a proposal generated probably by the first of the year to talk more about how we can form better partnerships and engage with our governmental entities around supporting the work that needs to happen in the coastal communities. So we do
Terrific.
Appreciate the opportunity. We appreciate the funding that you've given us, and we look forward to continuing this relationship with you. We're very grateful for your support.
Thank you. All right. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Okay. Move on to item 6, which is consideration of a Fourth Amendment to Oregon Health Authority 2024-2025 Intergovernmental Agreement Number 026023 for the financing of community mental health, addiction treatment, recovery and prevention, and problem gambling services. Do we have Frank Hannon Williams with us online? I think we do.
Good morning. Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
Frank Hannon Williams, Director, Tillamook Family Counseling Center. This Fourth Amendment is specifically related to an amount that would come to us from the Oregon Health Authority. It's in a category called invoice services. It is a amount of dollars which allows us to be able to support the costs related to the treatment of someone in the community who may be receiving a small group of services that are not reimbursed by the Oregon Health Plan. They may be services that we provide. I'm looking at the numbers of the services that are in this particular group, and just with a couple of them, one of them is adult foster care. The other is some specialized services to older adolescents who are experiencing their first episode of having psychosis. And it could be that there are services that we provide, but it also could be a service that we are being invoiced for, that is being provided for, and it could be outside the community. So the purpose of the dollars is to be able to be flexible with making sure that people get what they need here, and when they don't have the Oregon Health Plan, which is a significant amount of service that we are provide and are involved with on behalf of the people that we see, that there's some additional dollars to kind of offset that. We're not talking about a lot of money here. It is the taxpayers' dollars. It is approximately $19,500. And as I say, it fits that category of invoice. It's called invoice services, and I would request your approval.
Thank you.
Thank you, Frank. This sounds like, as always, it's better to have more resources. And in the case of folks who are receiving a variety of services, sometimes that is what is needed is, as you pointed out, something like foster care, something that may not be a direct service that your agency provides, but in order for the service that your agency provides to be most effective, it may require some additional pieces that are offered by someone else. And I just appreciate the opportunity that as we receive it to treat the whole person and the whole situation so that we can really work to helping people be as healthy as they can. So it seems like a great idea, more money to really support the full needs of individuals. I'm in support.
Thank you.
Commissioner?
Thank you. I too would support this, and also I believe the next amendment, the same thing, for the same type of service. And I'm always amazed at what we do for only a population of about 28,000 people, that we offer these services as extensively as we do. And I think it's a good thing because even with only 28,000 people, there are people in need of these services, and this way they don't have to drive 100 miles or 200 miles round trip. They can get it locally, and it's a good thing. And I think we probably all know someone, a neighbor, relative, or somebody who's needed this sort of service. So I'm just glad that we were able to do it and keep it financially solvent.
Thank you. Well, I am supportive also. I think, Frank, you mentioned adult foster care and care for adults with psychosis. I am very grateful that we can take care of people, whatever their need. You know, some people have highly specialized needs, and I'm grateful for the funding to be able to provide for them. So I think we're ready for motion.
Madam Chair, in consideration of a fourth amendment to the Oregon Health Authority 2024-2025 Intergovernmental Agreement number 026023 for the financing of community mental health, addiction treatment, recovery and prevention, and problem gambling services, I move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion passes. Okay, moving on.
Thank you, Commissioner.
You're welcome, Frank. You also have the next one. Item 7 is consideration of a fifth amendment to the Oregon Health Authority 2024-2025 Intergovernmental Agreement number 026023 for the financing of community mental health, addiction treatment, recovery, prevention, and problem gambling services. So Frank, how is this one different than the previous?
This is a more money in a different category.
Okay.
This is this allows us to be able to provide services that it is a category referred to as aid and assist. It is a scenario. It would be something like this: a criminal defendant may be found incapacitated or unable to aid and assist in their own defense as a result of a qualifying mental health disorder. The person is unable to understand the nature of the proceeding against them, to assist and cooperate with their attorney or to participate in their own defense. This service provides assistance to individuals in gaining and regaining their capacity in the most integrated and least restrictive setting possible in the community. It could include services related to discharge planning, their treatment plan pulled together. It could be that there are some concerns that this person is not quite able to pull together around their health issues, and it allows a staff person to be able to assist them with that. It could be that it may assist in the placement in the community. It could be that we need time to reach out to the person's parents or relatives who perhaps may live in another state. I'm just giving you some examples of that, and allows for us to engage them in services in the community and some periodic assessment of their capacity. That is what Aid and Assist is about. The goal is to divert the person from having to receive services in a really restrictive setting, which would be the Oregon State Hospital, and to support them as much as possible in the community. This award is call it an award. This award is the amount is $103,000 for the period of July 1 through June 30th of next year. And again, I would request your approval.
Thank you. Commissioners, any comments on this?
First, I'll start by just sharing why he needs our approval. I think this is one of those things that folks may not realize is that as the Board of Commissioners, we are responsible for ensuring the appropriate mental health services. And in Tillamook County, that has been done by contracting these services out to Tillamook Family Counseling. So these funds actually come to the county for Tillamook Family Counseling. So that is why it's in front of us as the Board of Commissioners today. So just an FYI on that one. The Aid and Assist has been a large conversation over the last few years as we have seen challenges with capacity at the state hospital. There was, in fact, a judge's ruling because there were so many capacity challenges. The judge said, set limits for how long folks can remain at the state hospital. It's just a lot more regulation around that has encouraged movement of people back to the community sooner and encouraged the community to surround them with services locally. And I think in many ways that can be a good thing, right? We want people to be where they have natural supports of friends and family and those sorts of things. But it also does mean a great deal of work, I believe, goes into providing safety in the community and safety for the individual as well as health and wellness for the individual. So these funds are absolutely needed in our community, support those individuals, support Tillamook Family Counseling in the services that they are required to provide. So, there is a limited capacity at the state hospital, and this is the way that the state has chosen to solve that problem. And we are a partner with the state in so many ways, and this is one of the partnerships we have, like it or not. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Commissioner?
Thank you. No, I'll just echo what I said about the other. The preceding motion was to have this in Tillamook County and in partnership with the state. And it sounded like there's another $102,000 advanced onto this. I think that's a good thing. And there are people who will be better off because of it. So yes, let's get this one done.
Thank you. I agree. I support, and I think we're ready for a motion.
Madam Chair, in consideration of a Fifth Amendment to the Oregon Health Authority 2024-2025 Intergovernmental Agreement number 026023 for the financing of community mental health, addiction treatment, recovery and prevention, and problem gambling services, I move approval.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion passes. Thank you, Frank.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your all of your support in this work. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, item 8 is consideration of a letter of support for the T-Mobile hometown grant application to establish Wi-Fi in Oceanside. And with us, I believe we have Bruce Jager of Oceanside. Good morning.
Good morning to you, and thank you for having us here today to present that we are requesting of the commissioners consideration for a letter of support for the T-Mobile hometown grant program for Oceanside Action Partnership pursuit of funding for cellular reception in the village and the tsunami area. And with this, we're asking for a grant from T-Mobile and hoping that the commissioners would take a look at the letter provided and see if they're willing to support.
Thank you. Commissioners, questions, comments?
I think this is great. Definitely in support. How much is the grant that you're asking for, if I may ask? I don't think I saw that in the letter.
$49,500 is our current budgeted item, but we have some bird dogging to do before we in verifying the vendors that we've selected and that type of stuff, but we are still pursuing the grant.
Perfect. And do you know what the total cost, I assume that's part of what discovering what the total cost would be to provide this on an ongoing basis, because this is a piece of that puzzle, right?
And so that the structure that's been proposed by the vendor, and the vendor in this case is Oregon Coast Wireless, Eric Lesser, is to have a Astound bring in fiber to the village, and at a very significant reduced cost to their normal due to the not-for-profit request, and they've agreed to do that, and that cost is roughly $10,000. Then in addition, there is the units that would go every 700 yards, and that on each of the homes and or establishments, and that would create a web network for Wi-Fi connectivity, and that the ongoing, and so then Oregon Coast Wireless would charge the houses with the equipment attached $30 or $33 a month, something like that, for their internet connectivity. And then they would offer the service to the whole community at $66 a month. And so there would be no ongoing costs for the community. It would be the cost would only be they would be picked up through private enterprise through Oregon Coast Wireless. Is that clear?
No, that's great. Thank you. It sounds similar in ways to what I think was set up during the pandemic in South Tillamook County to bring Wi-Fi to places that otherwise it couldn't be brought reasonably through cable or other things. So I think it's great. And it's amazing that you as a community have come together to seek solution and to find a partner to invest in to do this work. So I'm absolutely in support of a letter to see if you can get the funding to make this happen. Thank you.
Commissioner?
Thank you. Well, I'll start by saying that Bruce is one of those individuals that turns a group of people into a community when something is needed, and there are a number of things needed in Oceanside, not the least of which is maybe a step up in cable TV service and then certainly cell service. He's one of the driving forces behind that. I've met with him on several occasions, including at their private homes in Oceanside and elsewhere back when I was on the PUD board, and then now as a commissioner, and talking about these various things. And Oceanside is such a wonderful community, one of the most scenic and beautiful on the whole Oregon coast, or the whole coast of America, as far as I'm concerned. But yet it has no reliable cell service, and up until fairly recently had very little cable TV service. And it shouldn't be that way when you're only an hour and 20 minutes or so from a 2 million population center. But things are changing, and as he mentioned, Astound has been part of it, and several other organizations. We've talked at length about when PUD opens a new substation in Oceanside, could they also add some internet cable and fiber and other products on the poles? And I think that's a bit of an issue, although the rights of way were granted for electricity only, as I remember. But this is a step forward as well. And T-Mobile has been a pretty active player. T-Mobile recently won a bid with the Department of Forestry for an extra large tower in the Tillamook Forest that would again advance cell service across Tillamook County. And as we all know, there are lots of dead spots, including Oceanside, including a lot of the things of areas up Highway 6. So T-Mobile, Verizon, and a few others have been major players. So I'm glad to see that they're making grants available, and hopefully this will be successful and they can take another step forward. So again, I very much support what's doing down there. And since they're not incorporated, even though they tried, the county can put our best efforts behind them, but this is still a community effort, and these people come together, and they're like maybe that's not a good analogy. They're like a small dog that bites into your pant leg and they won't let go. They just keep going and going and going, and eventually stuff gets done. And so I give them high marks for being persistent and knowing what they're doing, and they just don't give up. And I think there's a lot of people in Oceanside that need to thank these other folks who stepped up and I won't say they've made a nuisance of themselves, because they haven't, but they've gotten to the top of the pile by clawing and scraping, and now they may find themselves with a fairly substantial amount of money, and they're winners. And sometimes that's what you have to do. And so then my hat's off to those people in Oceanside.
Thank you.
I call them community champions, Doug, but a dog with a bone. I mean, everybody has their own phraseology.
Yep.
Well, you did make Bruce laugh when you called him an ankle biter. I also appreciate your advocacy for the community, and I'm thrilled about this, the prospect of this project and the relative affordability of it. It sounds wonderful, and I agree completely about the need. Oceanside has very limited, has no cell coverage and limited Wi-Fi. So I agree completely about the need for all kinds of reasons, starting with safety. So I'm happy to support this request, and I'm happy to see that this kind of progress being made. So thank you.
Oh, thank you. We have an excellent group.
Okay.
Okay, I think we're ready for motion.
Madam Chair, in consideration of a letter of support for the T-Mobile hometown grant application to establish Wi-Fi in Oceanside, Oregon, I move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Thank you, Bruce. Thank you for your work.
Thank you so much.
All right, moving on to item 9, consideration of change order number 1 to contract 6570 prevailing wage rate contract for construction with Point Monitor Corporation for the Justice Facility Fire Alarm Replacement Project. Do we have Lieutenant Silvera with us?
Yes, ma'am. You guys hear me?
Yes, we can. Good morning, Lieutenant.
Here we go. Good morning.
There you are.
Good morning, commissioners. Yes, so Point Monitor, we contracted through them to replace our fire alarm system that was outdated. We've had lots of issues with false signals. So they came out here and installed a whole brand new system. But unfortunately, time-wise, it was exceeding their completion date. So we had an amendment done to complete the project. The project is completed, but we still needed to come in front of you lovely folks to for the approval of the amendment.
Okay. Do we have any questions?
No questions. Very, very happy to hear that it's completed. That certainly, as we heard about, that was one of those very necessary repairs. When we have persons in custody, we are responsible for their safety. And obviously, having our fire alarm systems function properly is just a basic must-have. So thank you for that, Lieutenant.
You're welcome.
Oh, thank you. Yes, let me ask a couple of questions, and I think I know the answers, but perhaps those on line would not. How old is the jail now? I'm going to say it's a little over 20 years old. What do you know exactly how old it is from construction?
25, 26 years old.
25, 26. And so a fire alarm that was in working order and part of the original construction is now not working and obsolete and had to be replaced. And I guess I would say that 20-year plus for something that was designed under the then current standards would not be unusual at all. What is the cost of this roughly to replace the entire system?
We were looking at 100 and I believe 54,000.
Okay. And so was it the same company or another company, do you know offhand, that did the original as a subcontractor?
No, sir, this is a new company.
New company. Okay. Well, I don't know what the market would be, but all I can say is this is an absolute, it's a building code requirement. And also keep in mind that there are people, a number of them, and sometimes more than less, of people in custody, and they certainly deserve protection. And this is one of the things you have to do. And I really don't think there's an alternative to doing it. And so it's done and complete and took a little longer than expected, but let's acknowledge that, put it on the record, and I certainly support it.
Excellent.
I'm sorry, just for the record, one more thing. The contract is completed, the services is done. Outside of the scope of the contract with our HVAC system, we found some deficiencies that the company discovered on the alarm system on the HVAC, which is a separate. And we are working through figuring that out with Northwest Control Center and Point Monitor to get those HVAC sensors, or I should say alarm systems, for them fixed. So we do have a couple more things that popped up unexpectedly that was out of the realm for the Point Monitor contract. So I'm working with both companies right now trying to figure out how to fix this issue.
Okay, well, thank you. And again, I just reiterate, a jail, a correctional facility of any type is a very, very complex building. This is nothing at all like a commercial structure that might house a dental office or something like that. I've been through it, and I remember when it went in some years ago. They're exceedingly complex, and there's lots of wires and pipes and all sorts of structural issues that go into a building like this that you would never find in a run-of-the-mill commercial facility. So I'm not at all surprised that these issues come forward from time to time.
Okay, I am fully supportive of this work also, and thank you for your leadership, Lieutenant.
You're welcome, ma'am.
Madam Chair, in consideration of change order number 1 to contract number 6570, prevailing wage rate contract for construction with Point Monitor Corporation for the Justice Facility Fire Alarm Replacement Project, I move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to item 10, consideration of modification number 1 to professional services agreement 6578 with McKinstry Ascension LLC for the Health Department HVAC replacement feasibility analysis. With us, we have Marlene Putman, Administrator of Health and Human Services. Good morning.
Good morning. as you may be aware, we've been dealing with some issues with the HVAC system in our facility, our main clinic on between 8th and 9th Street. We're working with McKinstry Ascension LLC to provide some investigation, I'll say, but also some options of how we could have both a temporary and a permanent fix for our HVAC system. In that process, we're finding out we're not going to be done by September 30. So we're looking for an extension through October 30 of 2024. We have had a meeting and reviewed some of the options, which indicate we need to do a little bit more investigation on the ductwork. And then we will come up with a solution that we think will fit our needs and work with our landlords on the building and see what we need to do next.
Okay. Commissioner?
I'm just glad we're getting this work done. We had a scare, I was over the summer, I think, where we had smoke from an HVAC unit that actually, I believe, required the evacuation of the clinic. So it was a fairly scary moment for everyone. And this work has rolled forward from that, really investigating the entire HVAC systems in the building. The building has been added on to at least one time that I'm aware of. So as we do that type of work, we don't always re-engineer things like HVAC. We just add on and stick another duct and assume it will be okay, or we stick an entire unit, and sometimes it doesn't end up being engineered properly for airflow and all of that. So I think that as we have dug into this, Marlene, you can correct me if I'm wrong, I think we have discovered we have some soft ducting that has some kinks in it. We have some rooms that appear to stay either very hot or very cold and not be appropriately receiving heating and cooling throughout the building. So it has taken a little bit more work than we expected, and therefore a little more time than we've expected. It wasn't as easy as plug and play. Oh, just remove that unit and put a new one in. It was actually, there are deeper issues than that and problems that perhaps have persisted for some time that people have lived with, such as poor heating and cooling. So I appreciate the work of McKinstry, and I do understand that, this is taking longer than expected, but it'd be best to get it right. So thank you.
Thank you. I did have a question for one person. Sorry for interrupting. They were asking, well, what happens if you have to add any more space to the building? Which is a good question. So in our request with the consultants, we asked that they look at the solutions that would allow us to add to the building if we needed to, and what the size would need to be for the replacement equipment. So I just wanted to add that because I did have a question from someone in the public about that. So my apologies for interrupting. Go ahead, Commissioner.
No, thank you for that, because we have looked at additional space to be added to that building and some rework on the inside it potentially that we don't know if we're going forward with, but it has been put it forward as a possibility. So if we can engineer for that at the same time, that would be fantastic.
Thank you.
Thank you. I would support this as well. As I said earlier in the previous item, a correctional facility is extremely complex, much more so than a commercial, but I will also take that another level. A commercial facility, such as the one we're talking about, is considerably more complex than someone's individual home. And they do have usually different zones for HVAC. And for people who don't know what that is, that's heating, ventilation, and air conditioning, pretty fundamental to the operation of any kind of office building. And particularly here in the Northwest, where we have some really, really hot days and lots of cooler days. And so you need a certain amount of fresh air because you have human beings working there. So it has to be kept in working order. And to the extent you're stretching the ability here, good thing, and get it done. Thank you.
Thank you. I am supportive also. I think we're ready for a motion.
Madam Chair, in consideration of modification number 1 to professional services agreement number 6578 with McKinstry Ascension LLC for the Health Department HVAC replacement feasibility analysis, I move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion passes. Thank you, Marlene.
Thank you.
Item 11 is consideration of change order number 3 to prevailing wage rate contract for construction number 6539 with Farnham Electric Construction for the Tillamook County Fairgrounds Electrical Services Upgrade. With us, we have Cami Von Sagern, Director of Tillamook County Fairgrounds. Good morning, Cami.
Good morning, Commissioners. Nice to see everyone this morning.
Nice to see you too.
We are requesting approval of this change order. It was something that was actually missed. I'm definitely not anywhere close to an electrical engineer. And going over all of those plans in the beginning, it called for an underground electrical box that connected some of our power pedestals in our front grass area right off of 3rd Street and between that and the tennis courts to a existing pole that was there. So some work had been done. New panel box was located on the tennis courts wall, and we realized that underground box is not going to be very useful just because the amount of water that we get, the amount of just natural, rain and soaking into the soil. So to me, it's a minor change. We have asked for that to actually, and it's twofold. So we asked for that underground box to be moved to the closest power pedestal and mounted it on the side. And then it will actually allow us to take out the existing power pole that is there that is not being used. The power overline or overhead has already been disconnected. If anything, we would use it for just one light and one light source, and it doesn't seem feasible to have it there. So we spoke with the engineers, and they agreed that we could go ahead and redirect that straight from the panel to the closest upright power box and mount the junction box there. That will also allow us to have it in line with all of the power pedestals. So once we take on the project of looking at the power that's existing, which is all direct burial, that eventually will have to, be taken out, and we'll have the box right there. It'll all be in line, and it'll be a little bit of an easier connection. So the fairgrounds is requesting approval of change order. I'm calling it 7. It's actually 6 for the removal or replacement of the location of the underground power to over or above ground power. And the amount of that is $3,394.79.
Thank you, Cami. Commissioner Olson?
Thank you. I'm somewhat familiar with what's being asked, and you said change order 6 or 7. Our material here says change order 3. So do we need to correct that on the record?
I think that we had some change orders grouped in terms of there were change orders to the contract, but we took them under one approval.
Okay.
So that for us, this is only the 3rd official change to the contract.
3rd batch.
3rd batch.
Okay, got
I
it.
think that's how this is happening. Does that sound right, Cami?
Yes.
Okay.
Then the number on the paperwork is 6, but that is from the contractor themselves, because we did batch several in the 2 preceding, and
So
this is just a standalone.
This is 3rd time then it's come before the commission. And okay, that makes sense. So, yes, I'm familiar with these changes and somewhat familiar, not intimately familiar, but lots happening out there. There'll be more conversations down the road about drainage. And then I think there'll be some additional conversations as time goes on with the construction of the nursing school at the college, which is adjacent to the fairgrounds. So there's quite a bit of activity going on out there. And if you've been out that way lately, you've seen some heavy equipment working on the college project. And there's also a fair amount of plans to restructure and add some buildings and do some things at the fairgrounds, including electrical. And then there'll be some more, I think, underground work on drainage. So a lot more to come, but this is certainly a step forward in what's happening. And, I don't know how many change orders have happened or how many projects, but I'm going to guess if you were to just number things that have come before this board over the years, this is probably number 722, if you went back forever. I mean, it's just it's a work in progress that goes on and on and on because things change and they evolve and requirements change and it just goes on and on. And I think we have a good team paying attention to this. So I'm pretty comfortable getting this one done.
Great, thank you. Commissioner?
I agree. I'm in support.
As am I, and I'm excited about the project. So thanks for being with us this morning to talk about it, Cammie.
Thank you.
Okay, Madam Chair, in consideration of change order number 3 to prevailing wage contract for construction number 6539 with Farnham Electric Construction for the Tillamook County Fairgrounds electrical services upgrades, I move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion passes. Thank you, Cammie.
Yes, thank you very much. And just to let you know, that project will be, that portion of that project will be completed by the end of this week. So I look forward to moving forward on the next phase.
Wonderful. Thanks. Okay, moving on in our agenda, item 12 has been postponed. Item 13 is consideration of a letter to Governor Tina Kotek regarding wind turbine power in the Oregon Coast Federal Waters. Commissioner Olson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This letter I wrote to the governor, as we discussed, I think at a briefing a week or two ago, has to do with asking the state to intervene or at least go on the record about some of the things that are happening in the Pacific Ocean just off our coast of Oregon. Specifically, on the south end, right near the California border, there's a large project underway for ocean windmills that would be floating windmills in fairly deep water, somewhere around 5,000 feet or deeper. And then there's a second project a bit north between Reedsport and Coos Bay. And these are administered by the Bureau of Ocean Energy Management, which is part of the Department of the Interior, federal government. And they have been at this for quite some time, but over the past year, they seem to have accelerated the move to do it. And they're actually calling for bids from organizations, companies, mainly large international companies, to award a bid or accept the bids in October and then award a bid by the end of the year. And the way we see that, and we meaning other coastal groups, and I am a member of the Oregon Coastal Zone Management Association representing Tillman County, and I looked at this in response to a letter that we all received from Coos County Commission because it affects them directly, and they had asked a number of questions that I have repeated and then added some additional in this letter. More specifically, I'll just go through them quickly for benefit of the audience. These great big units, I'll start off by saying, are about twice the size of those you would find in Eastern Oregon and Washington. When you drive through the Columbia Gorge, or if you fly into Portland from the east, you'll look out the window of your airplane, you'll see all these windmills. These are about twice that big, and they float in the ocean. And it's not unproven technology, but it's evolving technology. Right now, there are literally thousands of these, some off the east coast of America and a good many off the various coasts of Europe. But there have been a number of accidents, most recently a pretty significant accident somewhere around Cape Cod, where something disintegrated and fell apart and went into the ocean, and because it's a mechanical device. So specifically what I'm asking on behalf of the county, if we all agree, would be when one of these units fails, what are the plans to replace? If the company running it fails, what are the financial provisions to assure that they continue and there's money there to take care of the problem? How are the hazardous materials being contained and disposed? And there are many, including lubricants and so on. Are biologists satisfied with how the efforts to mitigate damages to marine life for both fish and vegetation? Who will be responsible for reporting all this and notifying the feds and the state if something fails? And I shouldn't say if, it's probably more likely when it fails. And some of these, something I learned more recently, and I learned quite a bit about this when I was on the PUD board over the past years. It would come up at our 3 days a month in Portland. This would come up in some detail because it would feed into the electrical grid on the West Coast. And so one of the items that I've learned about more recently because they're so large, there's an effect on radar, and that includes navigation of the ships and maybe aircraft, and then also on weather radar. You've got these things sticking up 1,000 feet into the air, and they're metal devices, and it has some effect on radar. And to the best of our knowledge, there's not been substantial in-depth answers to that question. Another one talking about when the power is generated, how does it cross in the open sea and then into Oregon's territorial waters, which extend 3 miles from the shore? And then what happens when it gets on land and it gets connected to a grid? Have they got plans for that, or is that to be yet decided? A couple more. There's been some opposition, and what is the state doing about it, if anything? It's mostly been local. There's been some hearings by the federal government, and I attended one of them down in Newport a month or two ago. And it was basically have some a bottle of water and some cookies, and we'll tell you what we're going to do. Not what, it really was. It was a listening session, but I didn't get the impression that it was. They were taking good notes. I'll just leave it at that. And then another question is what's happening with the tribes? Well, since we discussed this a week or two ago, I will tell you that the Confederated Tribes of Coos, the Lower Umpqua, and Siuslaw filed a lawsuit on September 20th in U.S. District Court in Eugene to stop the project. And so the tribes are not necessarily in alignment either. And evidently, from what I've been able to learn, is they have essentially the same questions. And tribal interests, of course, tribes are an independent nation, even though they exist in America on U.S. soil. They are, in fact, treated as independent nations. And so they have gone in and they achieved standing by virtue of being an independent nation. And they filed a lawsuit in federal court because this is a federal issue. And so that's yet to be decided, and whether there'll be some kind of an injunction or not, I don't know. I'm not sure that's anybody could answer that until the judge makes a ruling at some point. And then there's a couple more questions about all the submarine cables. As you know, we have a cable landing station in Tillamook County, and there are lots of cables undersea that bring fiber from Asia and Australia and Hawaii and elsewhere, and they come underground. And so what is the effect these might have? And it's not just a mechanical effect, meaning because it's floating and the cables might be, several thousand feet below that. But there's an electronic effect because they're generating electricity, and you also have electricity and modified radio frequency signals down another X thousand feet in the ocean. And is there an effect of induction or something else? Nobody seems to have that answer. And so there are a couple of other things as well regarding the fishing fleets. If my understanding is the fishing fleets that may go out of Coos Bay and elsewhere, they haven't received satisfactory answers to these questions. And so I guess the talk in the halls about this is that the federal government has been directed by the White House, shall we say, to get this done before there might be a new administration in that might have something else to say about it. And so hence the accelerated timeline. Now that's a political opinion from different people, may or may not have any validity, but it does seem there are so many unanswered questions. So what I'm asking for us to do is send this to the governor and join with the letter that's already been published by Coos County, and then make them aware of the lawsuit as well. And then perhaps other counties may wish to join in. Now, someone might say, well, this is not off the shore of Tillamook County. It's 200 miles that way. Why are we concerned? Because they're coming north. And that is the long-term plan to extend these up and down the coast of America. And no doubt they're looking into California, and they'll probably be coming north. But there's so many unanswered questions that a lot of experts have not been able to adequately answer that I thought it made good sense if we went on record in behalf of the people of Tillamook County to say we're not necessarily against it. In fact, we realize that that clean electric power is a necessity, not only for automobiles, but for all the other devices that we all carry. Where's it going to come from? but have we thought this through? Because when you put something in the ocean like this, there are usually and probably will be unintended consequences, and what are you going to do about it? So we're asking the governor to intervene and at least make some calls, write some letters, maybe even send an attorney to have a visit with the federal government and see what can be done, if anything. So, and I'm hoping other counties might do the same because there's strength in numbers. If the entire Oregon coast said time out, that might have some weight. On the other hand, the feds can go do their thing and thumb their nose at the state like they do from time to time. So that's a long explanation of a 2-page letter, but I think it has some merit because I bet I've heard from several dozen people over the last couple of years, what about this ocean energy and how is it going to mess up the Oregon coast? And the answer is we don't know, but we're concerned. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner?
I think that my colleague has done a really good job of explaining the issues that are in front of us. I also received the letter and did a little research into what the catastrophe was on the East Coast. So you did have a failed wind turbine that resulted in all of the chemicals entering the ocean, as well as the shattered blade washing up all along the coastline. And they actually had closed the beaches related to that because of the sharpness of the material on that blade. So while they have now done their best to clean the beaches and reopen them, we can be certain that still existing in the sand in that Cape Cod area will be pieces of that wind turbine, probably from now into the far future as one can see. So there are challenges and concerns that have not been addressed. And I do think that as we look at moving this forward in Oregon, we do want the answers. We do want to know. I also this weekend was reading an article that came up about, I believe it's called the right whale. And the right whale is an endangered whale on the East Coast that they believe is being impacted by the wind turbines as well in terms of the whale's own sonar systems and signals and how those get confused by the wind turbines and the sort of tones they generate. So it's just more unanswered questions, I think. And to Commissioner Olson's point, we're not suggesting that Tillamook County is against clean energy. We're not suggesting that, we only want to stay with the old ways and not move forward. We are just suggesting that this is exceptionally experimental at this point, that we don't have the answers we need, and we can see that our ocean coastline could be next. And we want to make sure that we are taking steps early in the process so that we can get our answers, so we can make good decisions when this time comes to make decisions in our area of the state. So thank you for bringing this forward.
Thank you. I also thank you for bringing this forward and for writing the letter. I appreciate it. I support it. I think that it's pretty outrageous that counties aren't at the table to talk about it. And so I think it's perfectly reasonable for us to ask to be at the table to talk about it. I think for a long time, the federal government, not only ours, but other governments of other countries, have played fast and loose with the ocean. Like it's a free for all, it's a free zone. And I'm thinking in particular about factory fishing. Where there are all of the science that's done about what's happening to our fish runs is about what's happening on the land, but what's happening in the ocean. And I think there's really inadequate information about what's happening in the ocean. And this is another example of that. I would like to know, what's the maintenance plan? What's the disposal plan? We all know how ocean air and water erodes things. So where would all that stuff go? And is it really the best model? I've read about the wave energy model that they're developing in Scotland, which is far less, it's at the level of the water, so it's not sticking up as high as the wind turbines. And so I just think there's a lot more information, and we should be involved in the discussions, certainly. And so I appreciate your letter, and I hope other counties follow suit. Okay. I think we're ready.
Madam Chair, in consideration of a letter to Governor Tina Kotek regarding wind turbine power in Oregon Coast federal waters, I move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion passes. Okay, we have one unscheduled item, and County Counsel Bill Sargent is going to talk about this. It's consideration of the appointment of an interim Human Services Director.
Excuse me. Ms. Jody Wilson, the current director of the Department of Human Resources, has submitted her resignation effective the end of the month. As the board is well aware, that department is critical to the functioning of all other departments in the county. And based upon previous experience, and just as a practical matter, finding a replacement is going to take a while. Takes a particular skill to be a human resources director, and especially for a public entity. So that leaves you all with some decision making you need to consider, and that is, what are we going to do in the interim between when Jody is no longer acting in that capacity and we find somebody else to plug that big hole. So that's what's on your plate for today.
Okay. Do you want to add to that?
I don't know that I would add to that. I think Bill has laid it out very clearly. Human resources is a very challenging field. It's very legalistic. There are a lot of things to know. We definitely, I believe, should be moving forward, finding an interim HR firm that can fill that void for us. But in the meantime, it's crucial that we have a named interim director to continue the business of the department, for the three of us to come together to try to make those decisions on an ongoing basis, which would be the requirement if we don't have an interim, is really not feasible in terms of keeping the operations running. So I think that it is important that we identify and appoint an interim, as we did with Parks. Commissioner Bell, as the liaison, you served as the interim for Parks. In order to keep that going, with that in mind, I would be willing to serve as that interim while we do the search for an interim firm as the liaison.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. I would agree with that. And as I understand, what we're talking about is the individual current person has submitted resignation and will be gone by the end of the week. So we're looking at an interim, meaning Commissioner Scar and perhaps in cooperation with one of our key staff. And then the next step would be to bring in an interim outside firm for even a temporary, some period of time while the search is continued and expanded for a permanent. So it's really 3 steps, as I understand it. And I think in view of where we need to go, and as council mentioned, this is a position that affects every department in the county. You simply cannot roll forward. The last numbers I saw, we've hired something around 60 people this calendar year, and there's another 15 or 20 positions in the pipeline. And so you're basically hiring 1 or 2 people every week, maybe more than that. And some of those are rather complex and important positions that require an immense amount of research and background checking and all of that. And so this is not something that you just ignore, because if you ignored it for 30 days, the county would have severe problems. And so I think this is a good way forward. It's a fair compromise. It brings in people who understand the county and then find an interim solution that buys some time to get a permanent. So I think whatever motion comes forward, if it's in that vein, then I certainly support it, understanding what's happened so far. And this is a fundamental responsibility of a board, is to make sure you've got the personnel matters under control, because ultimately any organization is people, and that's what we are.
Thank you. I support this. I support appointing Commissioner Scar and Rachel Haggerty as a team to be interim director, with the understanding that we will be searching for a firm, so you two don't have to do it forever. And I'm grateful for your volunteered service, and for Rachel's as well. I think it's a good blend for you to be able to support each other. And I agree that there are things that need to happen right now, personnel action forms that need to be signed, et cetera. There are things that need to happen immediately. And we have a IS director interviews on Monday,
Correct.
there are things that need to happen right now. So I think we're ready to move forward with this.
Okay. So, Madam Chair, in consideration of the need to fill the position of Human Resources Director with an interim, I move approval to appoint Aaron Scar and Rachel Haggerty to share that role.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? As of today.
As of today, thank you. Motion amended.
Okay. Any further discussion?
My
Okay.
only further comment would be, I'm certain that there are many staff and directors online today who were waiting for this decision. And I would ask publicly for everyone's patience that this is going to be a challenge for Rachel and I. The first step, of course, is just determining all of the things that are currently at play right now. And I know there are directors who will be seeking immediate action on items. And I just need to let everybody know we will do the best we can. If you receive an email saying we will get to that as soon as we're able, we ask your patience. That lets you know we've received your request and we have added it to the list of many and we'll get to it. But just asking for patience and grace as we go through this transition. Thank you.
Yeah, that's important. And also we'll be communicating. with
Yes,
leaders about
absolutely.
This is what it'll look like moving forward.
Yep.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second amended to be effective upon signing.
Mhm.
All right, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye, motion passes. Thank you, Bill.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to board concerns.
We have a board briefing today. Is that correct? We do, right? Okay, because I have a couple of items from AOC, but I'll just save them for the board briefing if we have time there.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Commissioner?
I'll just, first go back to the motion we just passed. People watching might see that Rachel is not here today. She's out of town. So we didn't just dump this on her. We actually did have a brief conversation that she's aware of this and certainly willing and able to do it. Just clear the record there. We're not picking on people who aren't in the room. The only other thing I'd mention, because there'd be some listeners, at our Tillamook Lightwave meeting yesterday, we received some pretty good news. The highway project that's most of you who've driven Highway 6, you've either stopped, maybe on several occasions for 5 or 10 minutes while there were crews working alongside the road. And what they were doing was putting in conduit. And you've seen these colored cables that are probably 4 to 6 inches around sticking out of the ground. They will be holding fiber. A lot of undersea fiber that comes from Asia into Tillamook County, just down south of Pacific City at Camp Wainema, and then going in to hit the main internet ring in the Hillsborough area. But there's lots of branch outs for fiber service to our local communities up Highway 6. And we were told yesterday by Astound that they will be hooking up quite a number of people, or offering the opportunity to hook up before the end of the year, starting October and November at some really modest prices. You can get very, very fast internet, like 1 gig up and down for under $100 a month. And they have some programs that are quite nominal, depending on your income, that are as low as $10 a month or $20 a month, something in there. And then some standard services like offered around the county and elsewhere for in the $40 to $50, $60 monthly. But for those folks who live up that way and have not enjoyed internet service, their day has come. And so they'll receive some information, I would guess, over the next 45 days or so, and offering an opportunity to hook up, and that may change some ways that people behave. So that happened. It took longer than we thought, but once they got going, they were really moving rather aggressively. And of course, there's more to come on Highway 22 and elsewhere, but this was pretty good news that they finally are going to pull fiber through all that stuff they put in the ground and then stub it out. And they're also working well advanced into the process of bringing cell service all the way across the hill. So good things, and it's finally going to happen here in the relatively near future.
That is good news. Thank you.
Yeah, excellent news.
Okay, anything else?
No, I might have a couple other items this afternoon as well, but not now.
All right. Then I will read our announcements. The commissioners will hold a board briefing today, Wednesday, September 25th at 2 p.m. to discuss weekly commissioner updates. The meeting will be held in the Board of Commissioners Meeting Room 106 of the Tillamook County Courthouse, 201 Laurel Avenue. The teleconference number is 971-254-3149, conference ID 866-914-607#. The commissioners will attend a ribbon cutting ceremony on Friday, September 27th, 2024 at 4 p.m. in the Cape Kiwanda parking lot in Pacific City. The commissioners will attend a public hearing on Monday, September 30th at 9 a.m. for the appeal of a Tillamook County Planning Commission's approval of conditional use request 851-24-000192 PLNG to update the master plan for Nehalem Bay State Park. The hearing will be in the Board of Commissioners Meeting Room 106 of the Tillamook County Courthouse, 201 Laurel Avenue. The teleconference number is 971-254-3149, conference ID 887-242-77#. The commissioners will hold an executive session on Monday, September 30th, 2024 at noon pursuant to ORS 192.660 sub 2 sub A to consider the employment of a public officer, employee, staff member, or individual agent. The executive session will be held in the Board of Commissioners Meeting Room 106 in the Tillamook County Courthouse, 201 Laurel Avenue in Tillamook. The executive session is not open to the public. And with that, we will adjourn at 10:25 a.m. Thank you, everyone.